Hey, so guess what today is?
Friday.
Today is Friday, and what does that mean?
It is the next edition of the SNL Q&A show, and I'm Scott.
And I'm Lane. Thank you for tuning in. And as always, thank you for posting your questions. I know that we actually got a couple questions that came in right after we ended the broadcast last week. So those are the ones that we're going to go over first. But again, if you have any questions, whether you're watching it live or you're watching a recording of this broadcast, please put it in the comments section below and we'll get to it next week for the next SNL Q&A show.
Absolutely. We're thrilled that our audience is growing, and we love the interaction because this show is all about you, our clients and friends of clients. So Lane, let's fire away. And I do want to give a caveat. I actually couldn't find my mic this morning, so I might not be as professional sounding, but the energy enthusiasm is always there.
Ah, you sound great to me.
Okay.
So let's get to it. What's the first question that we have? How will home prices be at the end of the year? Do you have any ideas on what home prices are going to look like by the end of the year? Scott, we have about 6 months left this year. And so what are home prices going to be like by the end of the year? I kind of have an opinion, and here's what I know. It seems to be that the normal spring selling season is shifting towards a summer selling season. So we're already starting to see it ramp up. A lot of sellers that were planning on selling are going to be selling towards normally when they're selling during the spring, they're going to be selling in the summer. They're preparing their houses for sale right now. So we're going to see an influx of inventory, which is great because we already have a really, really high demand. So I do think that home prices are going to stay steady where they are now, if not be higher by the end of the year. Scott, are you still with us? Okay. No problem. So yeah, so that's what I think. I think home prices are going to be steady, and if not a little bit more by the end of the year, because again, the spring selling season is shifting, and we're going to have a summer selling season here. Inventory is still brutally low. Demand is still really high, and we don't see that going anywhere. Actually, I was just looking at a stat recently, and to be honest with you, we are almost at the exact same levels of scheduled showings right now than we were this time last year. And we're actually up almost 7% from this year's pandemic peak for scheduled showings. So the buyers are back, but the sellers aren't back yet. So what that means is there's an awesome little bit of window opportunity for the early summer selling season to probably still get your price and have a really competitive marketplace and favor the sellers right now. So let's go to the next question if we can. What are the average days on the market? Scott, are you back with us, or you want me to continue?
I'm here. I apologize. I'm getting a message saying I apologize, everyone. There's something saying my internet is unstable, although I have the fastest router and everything I can have. There must be something going on in my neighborhood. So please bear with me today. If Lane is more front and center, that's just because of my instability with the internet. But I seem to be okay right now. I know our average days on market right now is about 31, I believe. And Lane has compiled the stats, how that compares with last week and last year. So Lane, take it away.
Sure. The 31 days on the market was for April. So what we do is we haven't really finished May, so those stats are going to be coming for our next week's call. But April was average days on the market was 31, and that's down 31.1% year over year. One of the other things I looked at is what did the average days on the market look like for homes that have closed within the last 7 days? And one of the reasons why I looked at the last 7 days is because the homes that were closing this last week are the ones that were going under contract during the peak of the stay-at-home orders and the peak of the kind of the COVID mess here. And so I wanted to look at that, and that was 38 days on the market. And then the last 24 hours for all the homes that have closed, that was 37 days on the market, which is still 11% below the average days on the market during this exact time last year. So 43 days on the market in 2019 during this time. So 11% lower. And a lot of that, again, we keep saying it, I feel like week after week, but we have really low inventory, high demand. Homes are selling faster, prices are staying stable. And so, again, when we go back to the previous question, where do I think home prices are going to be by the end of the year? They're going to be stable, if not a little bit higher than where they are now. And a huge reason is because of the low inventory, high demand, and homes selling a lot quicker. You know, with the average days on the market being just over a month, for 2020 for April and the last 7 days as well of May. That's really great. And you know what? Our Sackin-Stone team, I have to brag, our Sackin-Stone team days on the market average is more than half of that. We're about 2 weeks average days on the market for our listings. So we're really proud of that. And homes are selling really, really quickly right now. All right, should we move on to the next one? Will the increase in mortgage forbearances have an impact on the market? Right now, we're not seeing much of an impact. I know you see a lot of headlines right now that the mortgage forbearances are on the rise. I think there were maybe over 4 million mortgages that were in forbearance. What that basically means is that a lot of the homeowners aren't, they're kind of deferring their mortgage, so to speak, but they're not losing their homes and they're not putting their homes up for sale right now either. So that means that does not help our inventory concerns. So at least for the short term, I don't really know what the long term is going to look like. I don't know really how many homes are going to be taken out of forbearance in the near future, but at least in the short term, that does not help our inventory at all. There's not going to be as many sellers putting their house on the market, especially if they're putting things in place right now to stay in their home and to not have to, and maybe save up a little bit and not have to pay their mortgages right now. So I think for at least what I can tell you right now is in the short term, I do not see much of an impact on the market, at least in a negative way, just because of our inventory problem that we're having in Orange County.
Thank you, Lane. I have moved closer to the router, so hopefully we will have a change in my communication.
Sure. Do you have any take on if the increase in mortgage forbearances will have an impact on the market?
Well, I do apologize. Again, I was moving studios, so to speak, so I didn't get to hear Lane's response there, but we do plan talk a little bit ahead of time on these. Again, I'm always what I call a boots on the ground guy. With our 30 plus years of experience and our thousands of past clients, we're seeing no real impact right now. But again, it just depends on the niche. I think it depends on the part of the country that people are in. And I think it may have a small impact at the kind of the lower end of the market, kind of the starter home situation. But I don't see a huge, I honestly don't see a huge impact.
Yeah, we definitely had similar answers there, Scott. I mean, I was mentioning the fact that we have let's face it, we have an inventory problem in Orange County right now. And with people putting their homes in forbearance, that's not going to really help the issue, so to speak, because they're going to be able to stay in their home.
And I think if we look at the way typically the real estate market works, everything starts from the bottom up. You have people that are renting and becoming first-time buyers. And then those people buy homes, and then those people are moving up and up and up and up. And then at a certain level, then those people are moving down to retirement homes or whatever. So if we take it all the way, just again, without being analytical, but take it to the bottom of that chain with interest rates where they are, with two-income families, with rents as high as they are, rents are at record highs, home ownership still has never been more affordable. So again, I always take it right down kind of to that first base level. We don't see any shortage of first-time buyers. And if we see first-time buyers coming into the marketplace, it then creates that foundation, and each level continues to move up demand-wise. So that's my kind of just, again, from an experience standpoint, the base for that answer.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the reasons why the homes have never really been more affordable is we have really, really low interest rates right now.
That's right.
Yes. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. And we always say that the affordability of a home is, unless someone's paying cash, which most first-time buyers don't, the affordability of a home is a combination of the purchase price you pay and the interest rate. Because we must remember that a home is a leveraged investment. So it's not like buying a stock. It's a leveraged investment where someone's putting 5, 10, 15, 20% down, and then their payment is based on that leveraged amount of the loan, not the price they pay for the house. So it's a combination of price they pay, the interest rate, and the loan amount. We must remember that it's not like just going to the store and buying something for cash.
Exactly. Well, let's go back a little bit as far in history, and that might relate to the next question we have coming up. But sure. I have some fun facts here. So in the 1970s, the average interest rate was 8.86% for the 70s. In the 80s, 12.7%. 90s, 8.12%. In the 2000s, 6.29%. And it's what's funny in the 2000s and early 2010s, and so the 2010s 4.07%. And what was funny about that is I was working at Chase Bank as a teller while I was going to school at Chapman University, and I totally remember the day that they put up a sign on the front board where the interest rates hit, a 5. And the whole bank was cheering when there was a 5 in it. So it's funny to see that in moving forward to 2020, average interest rate right now, 3.24%. So they're really, really low right now. They're really low. And the question that's on the screen is, where do you see rates going by the end of the year?
Well, typically speaking, if we also factor in the fact that it's an election year, and I know Lane has the stats to this, which is amazing, he always does, but typically we see in election years, no matter what political party you're affiliated with or what's going on, is that the rates tend to stay stable and even dip a little bit. So that's just another anecdotal situation with regards to that. But the predictions we're getting from the sources that we listen to as well, from a regional and a national perspective, are saying there's no upward pressure on interest rates whatsoever. And when we do see a chance of the economy being in a little bit of a flux, there's also pressure to keep interest rates down historically. So I see from several different facets no reason to expect that interest rates would rise by the end of the year. And I've got my own little anecdotal stories as well. You've heard them before, but like Lane's, I remember vividly sitting in the conference room of my real estate office back in the early 90s and cheering like Lane's Chase Bank did, cheering and cheering when the rates dropped below double digits, which means under 10%. And we thought we'd never see that again. And then another story, when Philip and I bought our first condo in the early 80s, the builder bought the rate down so we could afford the house from the market at that time, which was almost 18%. So we have to remember the folks that are in the marketplace, especially our younger listeners and clients, have never experienced anything beyond where we are now. And, 5, 4, 3, it's all just amazing. And we look at the incremental cost of your money, even between a 3 and a 4 and a 5, and it's still not huge. And again, I think homes have never been more affordable right now in Orange County, even with our record high prices.
Your memory and your stories are right on, because in the 80s, I'm pulling it up again, the average in the 80s was 12.7%. So 18 must have been early 80s, and it must have been high, because in the 90s, as you mentioned, going under double digits, the 90s average was 8.12%. So you were right on with those percentages. One thing too, I know you mentioned it, that this is an election year. You also want to look at the news a little bit, so to speak, because it looks like there might be some tensions with China coming down the pipeline again. And if you remember when we were going through those tariffs and the trade wars and the increase in tensions with China previously, interest rates and the short-term interest rate by the Feds, those were going down during that time. So if we have renewed tensions with China again, there could be downward pressure on rates. And a lot of professionals in our industry are thinking that we might even be able to see 2s in an interest rate by the end of the year, which is incredibly low.
No, that's insane. And I know, again, we don't want to be arbiters of where the rates are going, but we do listen to the professionals, as Lane just said, the people that are the policymakers and have their pulse closer to where the sources are. And let's talk, I think it bears talking about this topic for a few more minutes, if our audience is okay with that, because what a lot of people say with rates, well, gee, this is fantastic from an affordability standpoint, but what about the seniors and so forth, the people that are relying on interest rates, for part of their retirement and their income? Is this going to change the market at some point, because, these folks are not going to be able to be moving or whatnot? And again, seeing the drastic drop in rates over the last decade, people have adjusted pretty much. So once they got into the 5 and 4 range, and people whose incomes kind of depend on rates a little bit, what I've heard, and I can also put my mom in the same exact category with this again, from a practical standpoint, is people have adjusted and they've realized, they're not getting the 7, 8, 9, 10% returns that they were on whatever their investments are, annuities, stocks, dividends, whatever. And again, I'm not an analyst about this, but people have adjusted over the last decade that they can't rely on or expect these near double-digit rates. So my feeling is that whether the returns come down a little bit from where they are now, it's not enough of a drastic change. They've already had to make a drastic adjustment, in the past 10 years, if I'm not speaking too obtusely here. So again, from a practical standpoint, from the seniors that we talk to, they've already adjusted to the fact of their foreseeable future in life. that they're not going to be getting rich, so to speak, from the interest coming from their bank accounts.
No, I mean, we've been like the savings account's been at what 0.1% or 0.01% for a really long time. So hopefully, a lot of the seniors are lined up with industry professionals in the finance side of things, and they're in funds or stocks or whatever the bonds that are helping them out during these times. So.
Yeah, you're right on. I think I just want to close the loop on that. I think just so we understand that the people have adjusted to the fact that the returns as it relates to interest rates, have drastically changed, and no one's really relying on those. So.
Yeah, exactly. Right on. So knowing that we have extremely low interest rates, knowing that there's never been a time that for homes to be, as you mentioned, affordable because of the low interest rates. Do you think if we were a buyer, and this is the next question here, should I buy now or wait?
That is a fantastic question. And Lane and I, in preparation for the show, have really bantered back and forth about this. And the first thing that I'd like to say with this is this question has been a question that has been asked of me since I got into the business in November of 1988. There's always something going on externally in our clients' world, in the world in which they live geographically, in the world of the state, and in the global world. There's always something going on. Yes, we've seen something with the coronavirus pandemic unlike anything we've seen before. Just like in 2008, we saw something like we've never seen before. So if we frame all of that, there could be reasons for a million different answers based on all of that. But the way I answer this question, and I always have, is I would look right into the eyes of my clients and say, what's the next chapter of your life looks like? What is motivating you to make a decision to buy right now? Are you starting a family? Are you thinking, I'm just cramped in my condo and I'm ready for a single family home? Do I want to take advantage of interest rates? Do the numbers look right for me? Are the prospects of my job in the near future looking good? So it's all a matter, to me, to the larger extent, is what does the next chapter of life look like for you? What do you want to do? So if we took out the external forces and you said, you know what, I'm ready to move. I want to make the move. I've got job security. We've looked at our budget. It makes sense for us right now. The rates are great. The answer is yes, you move forward. And then you would ask yourself, what would keep me from waiting? What would keep me from buying now? And if I should wait, and if your only answer to wait is because, I'm unsure about the external forces of the world, if that's causing you overarching stress that, paralyzes you and you can't even think straight, well, then perhaps maybe you should wait. But what I will say is the majority of the clients that we see and the people buying our listings are people that understand the world is an unpredictable place and home is a safe haven, and nothing is an absolute sure thing. But if I can feel pretty confident and create that safe haven and have somewhere that I can come home to every day to be with my loved ones and my family, that's the most important thing. So again, I'm a little bit more anecdotal, not near as analytical as Lane, but I think that's why we play off each other so well. We've talked about the analytical factors. So there's my quick hit on it, and I will get off my soapbox.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if you're asking this question, that means there probably is some interest in wanting to buy. So the question is, do I wait or do I buy now? And there's two things. We work with people that absolutely have to buy now. And if you have to buy now, again, take advantage of the low interest rates. But the fact of the matter is, and I keep saying it, and I don't mean to keep bringing it up, but inventory is really low. So it is a marketplace that is favoring the sellers a little bit right now. I mean, I'm not going to lie. But if you connect with a good, strong team, like we know that we are, we know how to get our clients the deal that they want, the price they want, and the home that they want, even in a competitive marketplace. So if you're looking to buy now and you have to buy now, that's okay. You're line up with a good team. But if you don't have to buy now and buying is still some sort of an interest or something you'd like to do, this is a perfect time to have a little bit of patience, because you don't feel like you need to back out of the marketplace altogether. Still look at homes still find one that you might be interested in, and then try to work on making a deal on it, because maybe there's a chance that you can find one because the seller absolutely has to get out for financial reasons or something like that.
Yeah.
So I would just be a little bit patient. Now, if you feel that if you lock into an interest rate now and you feel like interest rates are going to go down, there's a couple things that you can do. You can line up with a lender that we mentioned last week that will allow you to float the rate down once. So make sure that you ask that question when you're pre-qualifying for a mortgage, or lean on us to be able to line you up with somebody that can, because you are seeing a lot of lenders that if you lock into your interest rate now and all of a sudden during the course of escrow, the interest rates goes down, you might be able to float that down once. Or in 6 months, a lot of lenders are offering no cost refinances. So if you lock into a really low rate, let's say 3.25%, 6 months down the road, we actually do see interest rates in the twos. Feel free to refinance then. So I would say, if you don't absolutely have to buy right this second, don't pull yourself out. Still look at homes, be patient, find the right deal, lock in at a really low interest rate. And if interest rates still happen to fall down even more than that, either refinance at no cost, or if they fall during the course of your escrow, float it down once. So that's my 2 cents on buying now.
You know what? I think that's great, Lane. And we, as our viewers can see, we've come at that question from two different perspectives. I think that's also the beauty of our team, different levels of tenure in the business, different age brackets. And we hope that we've kind of covered all that. But this is a question that's never going to go away. As I said at the outset of this, it's never going to go away. There's always internal reasons within your family and also external reasons. So we always just want to analyze those. And I think keeping in mind, remember, a home is the biggest investment that you're going to make, but it's also the biggest source of enjoyment, of pride, where memories are made, your haven when you come home from a hard day at work, or sometimes these days where you walk around the corner from one room and come home from work. So I think it's really a matter of digging deep inside with your significant other, or if you're buying by yourself, and then having that conversation, expanding your circle to trusted advisors, a lender, Lane, Philip, or Gary at the Sackin-Stone team. And again, closing that out with, as Lane said, you don't need to feel pressured or rushed, but let's start the conversation, because many times we'll have a conversation with a client and something doesn't materialize for a year or so, or someone's thinking I might not do something for a year or so, and we start a conversation and then under contract for a dream home in 45 days. So again, in closing that, just consider us those trusted advisors, get us in the loop early on when it's just an inkling in your mind, and we'll work through it together.
Yep, absolutely. So we're moving into our last question. And in closing, if any questions pop up during the remainder of our broadcast, we'll get to them. If they come up as they did last week after somebody watched the broadcast, they may have posted a comment after. We'll get to those on next week's call. So we thank you for your participation. We thank you for joining us. We thank you for your questions, and we love answering them. And we're going to continue to do this on a weekly basis. So let's get to the next question. And the last question that we have right now is, we just asked, should we buy now or wait? Should I sell now or wait? Any thoughts?
Well, I think I've been a little windy on the buy side, Lane. I'll let you start this, and I'll recap.
Well, I guess I would ask this question. So right now, if inventory is pretty much the lowest it's ever been, and demand is back, demand is exactly where we were this time last year, and 7% higher than the COVID peak. So the question is, if demand is the highest it's been all year and inventory is the lowest it's been all year, and you needed to sell, wouldn't this be a good time to sell? And my answer would be yes, because we look at the month supply of inventory. Anything under 4 months supply is a seller's market, and we're at like 1.8 months supply of inventory, which is astronomically low. It's very leaning in favor of the seller right now. So if you have to sell or you want to sell, I would probably take advantage of the fact that inventory is really low. I would take advantage that the demand is really high. But at the same time, there was also an article that came out that more than 75% of people that have thoughts in selling in 2020 are preparing their homes to sell right now. So take advantage of the inventory while it's still low. And my answer would be, should I sell now or wait? If you want to sell, or you plan to sell, or you have to sell, now is a good time.
I think I'm going to echo that with Lane, and I always go back to my basic economics class in college, which is supply and demand. We all know the basis of supply and demand. And as Lane said right now, when supply is low, demand is high. We have the external factors with low interest rates, and everything points to, a good seller's market right now, a continued seller's market. When the supply increases, of course, demand will change just a little bit. So I have to agree with Lane 100% on that. And then I think one other thing I might add is, when we look at that flip side with the buying, we have the clients that are either, if they don't already have another home in mind, what's the situation if I want to move up or down in the same marketplace? Okay, that's the main thing, same marketplace. And we know inventories are very low. We do have mechanisms in place. We've had them in place for many years where we can arrange for a closing and a rent back period where the seller gets to stay in the home as a tenant and give them a little bit more time to find that next property, whether it's a move up or a move down in the same marketplace. Also, conversely, we have a handful of clients right now that are retiring and have either purchased homes or put deposits on homes that are in other marketplaces out of state. We're seeing people moving to Prescott, Arizona, Flagstaff, Arizona, Boise, Idaho, Asheville, North Carolina, for different reasons, family, change of scenery, what have you. We've been fortunate enough to put these people in touch with agents and competent professionals in those areas to help them understand how those markets work and kind of packaging the whole sell and buy situation. And again, as trusted advisors, we've been down this road so many times before. And as you are thinking, if you want to sell right now, I'm going to say again, let's get the conversation going no matter what your situation is, because of course, if you sell, you're going to have to find somewhere to live next. And we don't know, until we have a conversation, what that looks like. Again, is it a rental in the area? Is it a buy in the area? Is it a buy outside the area? Do you already have a home picked out? Do you have a lot picked out on your building on that lot? There's so many factors that come into play. And so we want to remember and remind you that we're part of the big package, that we're part of the overall solution. No matter whether you're moving around the corner, across the state, or across the country, we can help you make sense of the whole package and have some sense of security as we look at what the timing should be.
Yeah, I feel like where we are at this point in time, especially if you put your house on the market, it's almost like the Tickle Me Elmo doll or the Cabbage Patch doll at Christmas time. There's a line out the door waiting, and there's fighting going on. Maybe not physically fighting in the real estate marketplace, but fighting in the terms of you're still seeing multiple offers and bidding wars, and there's some fighting going on amongst buyers there. That if you have a home in this marketplace, even with everything going on that's adequately priced, you have a Tickle Me Elmo at Christmas or a Cabbage Patch doll at Christmas. You really do. And so I think that should help answer the question of should I sell now or wait. If you're willing to price your home properly and listen to the professionals on how to market your home, you're gonna have some sort of frenzy in a line of buyers waiting for your home.
Absolutely. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and close out with my normal thought. Again, what's the next chapter of life look like? If you don't have to sell, but you want to sell and you want to move on to that next chapter, if you're saying, I'm ready for whatever the reasons are, upsizing, downsizing, changing locations. If this is your time in life, this is from my heart. If it's your time in life, let's help you move on to that next page. Because you're already thinking about it. It's in your heart. You want to do it. Let us help you with the analytics side of it to determine if the numbers are there to make it work for you. If you're thinking about it, let's, again, continue the conversation and see if it makes sense now to make it a reality. Because if it does make sense for you, we do believe it's a great time.
Absolutely. Well, that was fun. That was another week done of the SNL Q&A show. I love Friday mornings with Scott.
I love them with Lane too. And the can-do attitude is exactly where we come from. And I so appreciate that. And we've got a comment from Helen Ingebrigtsen with our can-do attitude. And I think, as any of our past clients know that are on our mailing list, they received a postcard from us at the very beginning of this, which was basically saying life, right now is giving us a big old bunch of lemons. And at the Sackin-Stone team, we're always about taking those, shaking them up, and how can we make a glass of lemonade or a pitcher of lemonade, or serving lemonade to the thousands of people that know and hopefully love us. That's what we do. We shift, we pivot. Love how Lane says, we pivoted through this. We've been the leaders at the forefront. We can't change what's happening in the world, but if we can make a little bit of change in your lives, and again, be that resource, even if you never want to move again and you stay where you are, That's what this show is about. That's what our team is about. And I so appreciate you chiming in there, Helen, because that's it. It's about can do. So thanks. That's a wonderful way, I think, to close out our show today as we hit the 30-minute mark.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for watching. Thank you for participation. Thank you for your comments, your love. If you found something that you really liked and you want to share it, the share button is awesome for us too. As always, we're going to be back next Friday. We might be back at a little bit different time in the afternoon, but we'll be sure to announce the time for next Friday. But we're going to be back every Friday. We love doing these, and thank you so much for watching.
I love it. I'm going to close out really fast because we're salesmen. If you don't ask, you don't get. Please, please, please share this so that we can help any of your friends or your family out that may not know who we are. Because if you know us, you know that this does come from our hearts. We love what we do. And it's our income and how we make a living. But if we can affect and change just a few lives with the show and what we do, it means the world to us. Thanks for watching today.
Bye.